If I told you the money in your wallet isn't really yours, that every dollar you spend, save, or borrow is part of the system designed centuries ago and still controlled today. The Rothschilds aren't just a name from history books. Their fingerprints are on the banks you trust, the interest rates you pay, and even the financial crises you suffer through. In 2025, while the world talks about inflation, recessions, and digital money, there's a deeper story hidden in plain sight. A story they don't want you to know. Watch till the end, because the truth will shock you. 200 years ago, Europe wasn't ruled by presidents or parliaments. It was ruled by kings, empires, and wars. But while soldiers fought on the battlefield, a different kind of power was rising behind closed doors. The Rothschild family, once ordinary merchants, had discovered something more valuable than land, armies, or gold. They discovered the power of money itself. Mayor Amschel Rothschild, the founder of the dynasty, had 5 sons. Instead of keeping them close, he sent each one across Europe, to London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. They weren't just opening banks. They were weaving a hidden financial network that stretched across borders, something no king or army could destroy. When wars broke out, governments turned to the Rothschilds for loans. When empires fell, the Rothschilds financed the rebuilding, and when nations needed stability, the Rothschild network provided it for a price. Their influence grew so immense that many rulers realized one simple truth: it doesn't matter who makes the laws if someone else controls the money. Fast forward to today, and the echoes of that legacy still exist. The global banking system we all live under, from Wall Street to the Federal Reserve, was shaped by ideas and systems the Rothschilds pioneered centuries ago. Their name may not appear on your bank card, but their blueprint is the foundation of modern finance. And here's the real twist. While ordinary people see money as paper or numbers on a screen, the Rothschilds saw it as power, leverage, and control. That vision didn't just change their family's destiny, it changed the destiny of nations. Imagine this: a government can print its own money, yet it still borrows from a central bank. Sounds strange, right? But that's the hidden game. Central banks aren't just vaults holding cash. They're the invisible engines that decide how much money flows through the economy, who gets credit, and how expensive your life becomes. And here's the shocking part. Most people think these banks are run by their governments, when in reality, they operate with independence that shields them from public accountability. This system didn't appear overnight. It was designed. In the early days, nations struggled to finance wars, rebuild after crises, and stabilize their currencies. The Rothschild family and other powerful bankers saw opportunity. They positioned themselves as the lenders of last resort, creating institutions that could bail out governments, but on their terms. Take the U.S. Federal Reserve, born in 1913. It wasn't simply a patriotic project. It was built after years of lobbying by private banking interests. Once the Fed was in place, control shifted. Instead of Congress directly managing the money supply, a central authority, shielded from voters, took charge. Interest rates, inflation targets, and liquidity decisions were no longer democratic. They were technical, hidden behind jargon only insiders understood. And who benefits when central banks raise or cut rates? It isn't the average worker trying to pay bills. It's the financial elite who can shift billions with a single decision. The brilliance of this system is its invisibility. People blame politicians, blame markets, even blame themselves for financial pain. But few ever look at the real lever of power, the central banks. That's where the Rothschild influence is most deeply rooted. Not in names on buildings, but in the silent machinery that makes nations dependent on debt. Most people believe banks simply hold your money safe. You deposit $100 and that 100 waits for you until you return. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The bank doesn't keep it locked away. Instead, it lends out most of it, sometimes 9 times more than it actually holds. This is the magic trick called fractional reserve banking, and it's the foundation of our financial system. Let's break it down with a simple picture. You walk into a bank and deposit $100. The bank keeps maybe $10 as a reserve and lends $90 to someone else. That person spends it, and the money lands in another account where the cycle repeats. Suddenly, your $100 has multiplied into hundreds more, existing in different places at the same time. On paper, it looks like wealth. In reality, it's debt stacked on debt. This system creates an illusion of abundance, but it also builds fragility, because if too many people walk into the bank and ask for their money back at once, the whole structure crumbles. History has shown us bank runs, panics, and collapses, all triggered when the illusion cracks. Who benefits from this? Banks, of course. They collect interest on money that didn't even exist before they lent it. And the central banks, they step in as guardians, ensuring the game keeps running, even if it means printing more money or shifting interest rates to patch the holes. For ordinary people, fractional reserve banking means one thing: endless cycles of inflation and debt. Your savings lose value over time, while banks and financial elites multiply their power. It's a system that looks stable until you stare too closely. Then you realize the money in your account isn't really money at all. It's a promise, backed by a system designed not for your benefit, but for theirs. Every time you swipe a credit card, take a loan, or dream of owning a house, there's an invisible number deciding your future: the interest rate. Most people see it as a boring financial detail, something buried in contracts or mentioned on the news. But interest rates are the steering wheel of the entire economy, and the people who control them quietly shape your life more than any politician ever could. When rates are low, borrowing becomes cheap, families rush to buy homes, businesses expand, and stock markets soar. It feels like prosperity, but it's a prosperity built on credit, not real growth. Then when central banks raise rates, the entire mood shifts. Mortgages become expensive, debt piles up, businesses cut jobs, and recessions creep in. A single decision made in a polished boardroom ripples into millions of households, deciding who thrives and who struggles. Here's the catch: interest rates don't just control spending, they control wealth transfer. The wealthy borrow at favorable rates, invest, and grow richer. Ordinary people, trapped with higher interest on credit cards or loans, pay more just to survive. Inflation eats their savings, while the elites position themselves to profit either way. This lever of power is so subtle that most people never question it. They think market forces or government policies are to blame for their financial struggles. But behind the scenes, it's the adjustment of interest rates, tiny percentages on paper, that crash markets, burst housing bubbles, or inflate new ones. In 2025, with inflation fears and talk of recession everywhere, interest rates are the hidden battlefield. And while you watch prices at the grocery store, someone else is quietly deciding how hard your dollar will work, or how fast it will disappear. The world may be divided by borders, languages, and flags, but when it comes to money, there's one king: the US dollar. It's not just America's currency, it's the world's reserve currency, the lifeblood of global trade, and the invisible chain that binds nations together. And here's the truth: this dominance didn't happen by chance. It was engineered. After World War II, when the global economy was in ruins, the US positioned the dollar as the anchor of stability. Through the Bretton Woods Agreement, foreign currencies were tied to the dollar, and the dollar itself was tied to gold. For a while, money had weight, something tangible behind it. But in 1971, that link was severed. President Nixon ended the gold standard, and from that day forward, the dollar was backed by nothing but trust and military might. Yet the world kept using it. Oil deals were priced in dollars. International loans were issued in dollars. Even countries that hated America still needed dollars to survive. This gave the US an invisible weapon, the power to print what others had to earn. But what does that mean for ordinary people? It means the dollar's strength or weakness decides the cost of everything, from the gas you pump to the goods you import. It means inflation in America doesn't stay in America. It spreads like a wave across the globe. And it means when the US government spends recklessly, the world pays part of the price. The Rothschild legacy plays into this as well. Control the world's reserve currency, and you don't just influence your own nation, you influence every nation. In 2025, whispers of de-dollarization are growing. Countries are exploring alternatives, from digital currencies to gold-backed trade. But until that shift becomes real, the dollar remains the silent empire, powerful, dominant, and shaping your future in ways most people will never see. Every crisis looks accidental. A bubble bursts, a bank collapses, markets crash, and the media calls it a tragedy, a failure, or simply bad luck. But look closer and you'll see a pattern. Every financial crisis doesn't just destroy wealth, it transfers it. And the winners are almost always the same. Take the Great Depression of 1929. While millions lost jobs, homes, and savings, powerful banking families and financiers bought assets for pennies on the dollar. Fast forward to 2008, when reckless lending and toxic mortgages brought the world economy to its knees. Ordinary families were crushed under foreclosures and layoffs, while the very banks that caused the collapse were bailed out with taxpayer money. They didn't just survive, they grew bigger. This isn't chaos, it's opportunity disguised as disaster. Financial elites understand that fear is a currency. When panic spreads, prices fall, people sell everything, and stability feels lost. That's when the powerful step in, scooping up assets, land, and businesses at a fraction of their value. Then, when recovery comes, their wealth multiplies. Even today, in 2025, whispers of the next crisis echo across headlines. Inflation fears, real estate bubbles, stock market volatility. To most people, these are warnings of pain ahead. But to those who control the system, crises are carefully timed resets, tools to consolidate even more control. Here's the hardest truth: while you're told to save, invest wisely, and work hard, the game is tilted. The rules bend for those who design the system. Financial crises aren't just storms that blow in from nowhere. They're storms that are forecasted, navigated, and at times created. Because in the world of high finance, collapse isn't the end, it's the beginning of profit. benefit for those who already hold the power. When countries run out of money, it's not just bad luck. They turn to two of the most powerful institutions in the world, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. On the surface, these organizations promise help, loans, financial stability, and advice. But beneath the surface lies a hidden reality: power, influence, and control. Imagine a nation struggling with debt. Its economy is collapsing, jobs are lost, and citizens suffer. The IMF steps in with a loan, but there's a catch. To get the money, the country must follow strict structural adjustment programs. These rules sound technical, but their effects are very real. Public services are cut, subsidies are removed, and essential sectors are privatized. The people pay the price, while foreign investors and global elites gain access to cheap labor, resources, and markets. The World Bank works similarly, offering development loans for infrastructure, energy, or industry. On the surface, it appears philanthropic. Roads are built, bridges rise, and hospitals are funded. But often, these projects are tied to contracts with foreign companies, generating profit for outsiders rather than local communities. Over time, countries find themselves trapped in cycles of debt, always dependent on the next loan, always subject to the priorities of those who hold the purse strings. History is full of examples, from Latin America in the 1980s to parts of Africa and Asia today. While these countries struggle to grow independently, financial institutions profit, and powerful families, including the legacy of the Rothschilds, maintain influence indirectly, shaping economic policies and controlling capital flows. In 2025, this dynamic hasn't changed. Global crises, rising debts, and the push for digital currencies give these institutions even more leverage. Ordinary citizens rarely see the invisible threads pulling the strings, but if you look closely, it becomes clear. The IMF and World Bank are not just lenders, they are tools of global financial power, shaping the destinies of nations while the world watches unaware. Imagine a world where every transaction you make is tracked, recorded, and controlled, not by cash, but by a digital ledger. This isn't science fiction. In 2025, central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are no longer a distant idea. They are the next evolution of money, and with them comes a new kind of power, one that could reshape how we earn, spend, and even think about wealth. Unlike cryptocurrency, which promise freedom from banks, CBDCs are controlled by governments and central banks. Every digital dollar, euro, or yen exists as a line of code. Every transaction leaves a footprint. Governments could, in theory, restrict purchases, freeze accounts, or even impose negative interest rates to force spending. The control is subtle, invisible, but absolute. Why is this important? Because money has always been power. In the past, the Rothschilds and other elite financial families influenced nations through banks, interest rates, and global finance. Now, digital money creates an opportunity to extend that influence into the personal lives of millions. Every citizen becomes visible in the system. Every purchase a signal, every balance a potential lever. The shift toward digital currency also ties into global trends: cashless societies, faster cross-border payments, and programmable money. It's marketed as convenience and security, but like every system, the benefits often favor those who design it. Control over digital currency means control over consumption, investment, and even social behavior. For ordinary people, the stakes are high. Privacy disappears, financial freedom shrinks, and the invisible hands of global finance gain a level of influence that paper money could never achieve. This is the silent revolution of 2025. The same forces that shaped centuries of banking are now stepping into the digital age with a power far more personal and direct than ever before. The question isn't if this will happen, it's how prepared you are to understand it before it affects every dollar you own. Inflation feels like a simple rise in prices at the grocery store, gas station, or online shopping cart, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful tools for transferring wealth, and the effects are rarely random. While the average person struggles to make ends meet, financial elites often use inflation to grow their wealth silently, invisibly, almost magically. Here's how it works. When governments print more money to cover spending or bail out crises, the value of every dollar you hold decreases. Your savings, once a symbol of security, slowly erode. The price of basic necessities rises, and ordinary people are forced to spend more just to survive. Meanwhile, those who understand the system, who already hold assets like stocks, real estate, or commodities, see their wealth increase. These assets rise in value faster than cash loses it, creating an invisible transfer of money from the many to the few. History is full of examples. During hyperinflation in the 1920s, Weimar Republic, or more recent crises in countries like Venezuela, ordinary citizens watched their life savings vanish overnight. Meanwhile, those with access to foreign currencies, investments, or resources were insulated, often profiting while the majority suffered. In 2025, the story repeats itself quietly. Inflation rates fluctuate, prices spike, and governments reassure citizens it's temporary. But behind Behind the scenes, the system is engineered to benefit those with knowledge, assets, and access. Every paycheck that buys less, every loan that becomes harder to repay, every savings account that loses value is part of a larger invisible shift of wealth. The key lesson: inflation isn't just an economic term, it's a mechanism of control. Those who understand it, prepare for it, and leverage it can thrive. Those who don't slowly lose their financial independence. In a world dominated by elite financial networks, this silent redistribution ensures the gap between ordinary people and the powerful keeps widening year after year. For centuries, money has been power, and the truth is simple. Those who understand it control it. Those who don't are controlled by it. Financial literacy isn't just about balancing a budget or investing in stocks. It's about seeing the system for what it really is, understanding the hidden rules, and learning how to play the game on your own terms. The Rothschilds and other elite financial families didn't become powerful by luck. They understood money, debt, interest, and influence long before anyone else did. They knew how to protect themselves during crises, grow wealth silently, and leverage systems that the average person barely notices. And that's exactly why knowledge matters. In today's world, with inflation, central banks, digital currencies, and global financial systems constantly shifting, ignorance is expensive. It costs you your savings, your opportunities, and ultimately your freedom. But learning how the system works, how banks operate, how interest rates impact your life, how digital money can both help and control you gives you an advantage. It's the first step toward breaking free from cycles of debt and dependency. Financial literacy isn't complicated. It's about curiosity and awareness. Start small, read, question, and analyze. Understand where money flows, why it moves, and who really benefits. Once you see the system clearly, you can make smarter decisions, protect your wealth, and even leverage opportunities others miss. Here's the truth: no one is going to hand you financial freedom. It's earned through knowledge, strategy, and awareness. And in a world where hidden forces shape economies, the most powerful tool you can have is understanding. So if you've watched until now, you've already taken the first step. Stay curious, stay informed, and take control of your financial future. And if you want more insights that the elite don't want you to know, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.